Hi everyone, and welcome to my March 2024 video of the month. This month's video is on the topic of confronting deception and manipulation in relationships. So we're going to get into this very juicy and relevant topic of our relational life in dealing with other humans in all aspects of life. And I'm excited to get into it and see if I can bring through something very potent that speaks to you and helps support you directly in your journey. Before I get into it, I do want to mention that this Sunday, the 10th, is my planetary upshift meditation event. I'm here in this office with Viola Rose on Sound Alchemy, and we'll be doing what we do each month, which is coming together with a group of people here and online. The live stream tickets are free, and it's a very potent ceremony, really, bringing in our intentions, coming into our hearts, and really the main energetic blueprint of this event is about channeling, dropping into our heart energy, cultivating a field of heart coherence, and channeling that energy as a group, just with our actual, guided meditation journey, channeling that energy towards really co-creation with life through the heart of creating, what we want to experience in our lives and in the life of this world and humanity as a whole. So it's very beautiful. We bring in cacao. Again, the live stream tickets are free, so if you're interested, I'll put the link in this video and would love to have some of you join us. And then the following month, on April 8th, is a very powerful event, which is the solar eclipse that's happening. And so it's happening on the new moon. So that is going to also be another opportunity, a very extra potent opportunity to engage in this practice that we do. So just looking ahead, if you want to put that on your calendar as well. Okay, all right. So let's dive into this topic. It's been an interesting journey of kind of gathering this topic together. And one of the things that I'm aware of is that we're in the season of Pisces at this time, with the sun in Pisces. And that the topic that's been emerging feels very relevant to Pisces, because the heart of the topic is really about looking at deception, looking at the energy of deception and all the different ways we can it plays out and we experience it. But the one of the aspects of Pisces, which is ruled by Pisces, the sign, is ruled by Neptune. So it's really the archetype of Neptune is what rules over the energy of Pisces. So Neptune includes, a lot of different aspects. One of which is just like infinite bliss. It's like the ocean. It's the oceanic field of just infinite, undivided oneness, right? And it also has this other dimension, as each archetype has many different dimensions and expressions. It also includes dissociation, addiction, deception. And that's kind of the bandwidth that I'm tuning into in terms of this topic and Pisces, and this being an interesting time to address this topic while we're in the season of Pisces. And interestingly, as I've been trying to create this video, I've been kind of working with some of my own interesting kind of inner resistance to this topic, or even psychologically, like some of that Piscean energy just hard to kind of grasp onto this topic. So we'll see how it comes through here. But what I want to focus on is looking at relationships, okay? Looking at our relational dynamics that we have with each other. and looking specifically at how the energies of, dishonesty, deception, which can also include just omission of the truth, all these different ways, manipulation, right, is a part of it. This can very much be connected to the energy of addictions as well, the addiction type of state of consciousness. It's all about trying to avoid facing a certain reality, right? So that's kind of the psychological phenomena we're talking about when we look at deception or dishonesty or manipulation. They're all different ways that one is trying to avoid facing and taking responsibility for something that's true, for a certain thing. Okay? So we can look at this in terms of ourself, when we're on the side of the one that is being that is sort of caught in an act of deception or being dishonest and doing that with the other person. And then we look at the other side of the equation of what is it like to be on the other side of a person that's operating in this way of not being fully honest, of being deceptive, being manipulative, gaslighting, right? All these different things. So we want to look at this just objectively as, each of us can play out both sides of this equation or experience both sides of this equation. So I think it's important to recognize that. And usually we will tend to be organized around one side of this equation more than the other. But I like to be careful not to make this super polarized, like, well, there's these type of people and there's these type of people and this is how they fit together. Like the classic is, of course, like the narcissist versus the empath type polarity. Not to deny that is actually a very common dynamic and that's real, and I think it's valuable to see it that way. But I also just want to talk about this in a way that acknowledges that even if I'm going to actually emphasize more being in the position of the one that's dealing with someone else who's operating this way towards us. So, but I'm going to emphasize that part of the equation. Okay, what is it that we need to do? How can we empower ourselves when we are the ones that are dealing with another person who's operating in this way? Okay, but I also simultaneously want to be clear that another part of this is looking at how we may be operating in that way. And just to acknowledge that each of us in different relationships can kind of experience, one side or the other, and that we're all responsible for calling this out in ourselves as much as it's showing up. And then also, again, I'm going to emphasize here the part of dealing with a person who is operating this way towards us. I'm going to focus more on that. But again, people, not to pigeonhole people into like a box of like, well, this person is a this and therefore like they always operate this way. And people are fluid. I mean, there are very personality disorder like structures, what we call personality disorders, where a person can be more pathologically fused and crystallized into a certain core structure in the psyche, core ego structure and ego defenses that are more fixed, and that those people do show up pretty consistently and immovably in a consistent way in relationships. That's all true. And again, it's always a spectrum. So most of us are, somewhere in this spectrum from that of showing up differently in different types of relationships. And I just like to honor the uniqueness of all of us, and that we're all dealing with these things, but we also show up really differently and have different constitutions. So all of that is just a preamble to say that what I want to focus on is more of the type of person who's drawn to my work usually, who comes to me and so forth, the kind of people that I work with in my practice as well, and also myself, like what my actual experience, just to own that as well. So I'm really speaking more to those of you who are operating in relationships and are working on this healing growth edge around self-mastery and basically standing up for oneself in the face of relational dynamics that can really be challenging, around a person who's operating with certain defensive mechanisms that are manipulative, gaslighting, and or different forms of dishonesty and deception. Okay. So let's look at, what am I really talking about here in terms of these behaviors? Okay. So, what happens oftentimes, and I see this a lot in my practice, actually, kind of all the time, is the ongoing, thing that I work with clients on and get to hear, lots of people's different experiences of this. But the common kind of caricature here of the situation that I'm speaking of is one where when the person expresses like their own truth, right? So whether their truth be in a given moment, how they're feeling, what their needs are, what their boundaries are, what their beliefs are. So when a person is just speaking their truth in a certain moment, and that's being affirmed relationally, that the other person then responds in a way that is challenging that truth, is questioning it, okay? So that the person on the other side basically it's not matching. The truth that's being spoken over here, it isn't pleasing. It's not matching what the other person wants that person's truth to be. Let's just say this is person A and this is person B. Okay, so person A is having an experience, is communicating that, and person B is at odds with that truth that person's speaking for whatever reason. Maybe it's like what kind of music I want to listen to on the radio, or what do I, just anything. It could be anything profound to the most mundane. But person B, isn't happy with person A's experience, and they want it to be different, so it matches what they want and what they're trying to achieve, what their agenda is, or whatever it is. So person B does one of many different ways that this could be done to question and challenge person A's experience. So in a healthy dynamic, in a sort of interdependency, right? So breaking from codependent to interdependent, what we want is for person A and person B to both be able to have the fullness of their experience. And yes, like they have to compromise, actually, probably a lot, right? I mean, especially if it's like a spouse or a marriage or, the more intimate relationship, there's more things that come up where there's compromise needed, or there's, some kind of negotiation that's necessary to solve differences. But what we want is for both people's experience to be honored, for the sovereignty of each person's psychic space and truth to be fully honored and respected. And so that one person doesn't have to, go over and like manipulate and change the other person's experience in order to get what they want, which is like a boundary crossing. So that's what we would want person B to do. But person B is organized in such a way in that moment that however conscious they are or not. And I want to emphasize here, again, because we're not demonizing people, we're just trying to, understand that person B who's doing this, may have any degree of consciousness or unconsciousness about what they're doing. So it's not, it could be actual intention to deceive, absolutely, like in the worst case scenario. It could also be just unconscious, right? So a lot of these things, there's like more shadow sides of us or unprocessed wounds or unconsciousness that leads a person into these type of behaviors, and they don't even realize that they're doing it. But they are doing it, and and I'm here to, call it out. So this is what it is. Again, it's not demonizing anyone, but there definitely, we can all go into a place where we do this, And so what this is, again, back to person B, is they will do a number of different things that are designed to basically change this situation over here to be what they want it to be. And there's different strategies for that, okay? Any form of, from the most subtle to the most gross form of gaslighting, of manipulation, of deception, of omission of information. So we all do this because we're structured to survive in this world, and we've all gone through different things in order to survive, and that's where this is all coming from. But the problem is that it's not ideal, it's not optimal, it's not necessary anymore. And if we want to evolve and have healthy relationships, we need to continue to work consciously towards changing these patterns. It's really essential. And so, okay, so we understand, gaslighting, okay, is something that where it's a form of manipulation on person B's part that is the kind of more aggressive form of this type of manipulation and deception, because not only is it saying, I disagree, or I'm not accepting your truth because you're wrong and I'm right, or whatever, but gaslighting is even more sort of, sinister or destructive or disrespectful, because it's actually saying, you know what, the fact that you're feeling the way you are isn't valid. It's that's just your trauma, or that's just your anxiety, or okay, I mean, it may be the person's trauma, and it may be anxiety, it may be whatever it is, okay? But that's not the point. The point is, it's not person B's job to come over here and judge and have a story and try to discredit A's experience. That is not okay, okay? Person B can have a perception about person A's experience and, have a story, and maybe they understand even where it's coming from, and maybe it is trauma or it is whatever. But gaslighting is basically a manipulative strategy that attempts to challenge A's reality, okay? And a challenge to someone's reality is very aggressive, and it's a very strong form of manipulation, and it's very damaging and disrespectful. And it shows up in so many different ways, right? Like, I'm not going to kind of go into gaslighting too much more here, because I want to at some point do a much more distinct video on gaslighting, because it's such a huge thing to understand. And it's so nuanced. There's so many different forms of it. But I'm speaking about it because it's one of the most it's one of the most common things that we'll experience. And for people that are in A's position, it's very powerful to continue to become more masterful in your ability to understand and to see when it's happening to you. Because what happens is person A, people that tend to be in the A position, or when they are in the A position, they tend to be more subject to self-doubt and to questioning oneself, right? To like questioning one's own reality. So when a challenge comes in, like, oh, you're just being controlling, you're stating a need, and then like there's so many different stories of manipulation, okay? You're being controlling, that's your trauma, you're wrong, I'm right, that's but just to really understand, if you're stating your truth and another person is not only they're disagreeing and they want something different, but their strategy relationally is to come onto your side and try to get you to see how you really don't need that thing, or don't want that thing, or don't feel that thing, or maybe you feel that thing, but it's not valid because of XYZ, okay? If a person is coming in with any type of a strategy, instead of staying on their side of the fence and having a conversation, right? They're coming over and trying to kind of push you off your platform. I mean, this is done all the time in terms of the public conversations, right? Discrediting the messenger. So we're really used to these type of strategies in the way that these things are playing out. What I want to emphasize here, and I'm going to keep this pretty short today, is, okay, coming into person A's position. What I want to emphasize for you, for all of us, is that it's really important to get better at calling these things out. So number one, really learning about what these strategies are, understanding that they are manipulative strategies. And I'm going to give you just a couple of strategies or practices that you can do in these situations. So number one is that when a person, this is kind of like a sacred dialogue technique, or if we go back to Socrates and the origins of certain types of debate structures go, and like logic and really breaking down these things, it's powerful to understand and remember that we aren't required to, if a person is saying something in a conversation, we aren't required to respond directly to what they're saying as a conversation point. So when we become less codependent and more differentiated, we really learn to stay with our own experience. And when a person is saying something to us, and this is not easy at all, this is really hard level, right? But is that we stay with ourselves so much that we don't have to, especially when the thing that's coming in is some form of deception or manipulation or dishonesty, or I'm right and you're wrong type of thinking, okay? This is a whole bandwidth of types of statements or relational strategies or types of ways of relating that can come towards us, right? When we're faced with a person that is bringing something towards us that's either deceptive or manipulative or gaslighting or a straight up untruth, lie, intentional lie, we can let that move through and we can respond with just a truth of our own, okay? It doesn't have to become like a polarized tit for tat, and you're not responsible for responding directly to what they're saying. So what you're responsible for is to come from your own platform. And in the case when we're being attacked, I mean, that's a strong word, but when we're under attack because the other person's actually coming from it's an aggressive energy, actually. Sometimes it doesn't look that way, but it is. So when we're under an attack like this, where the other person's basically trying to get us to stop believing in ourselves and to question ourselves so that we'll give them what they want in the moment, our job is to not get entranced into the whole line of thinking that's a manipulative, deceptive strategy. Our job is to call out what's happening, the underlying dynamic of what's happening, and calling it out and confronting it directly. And there's many different ways that we can do this, of what it looks like. But it's some form of, first of all, becoming a broken record of what your truth is, and a boundary. It's an affirmation of the truth, and it's a boundary against this attack or this manipulative attempt. It's a pushback. It's saying, you know what, I don't appreciate, I hear you. I hear that you just said X, Y, Z. And, I have a different experience, and you don't have to agree with me. And so your response becomes an affirmation of your own space, because until or unless we're able to learn how to do this, and in the face of this, even if it's just a micro thing that happens with someone you're really close with, that we have to become like ninja masters in the moment to recognize that this is happening and to stop it in its tracks. Because there's no rationalization with the deceptive line of thinking or the manipulative line of thinking. If the whole agenda of this part is to basically just come over, usurp this truth and just get it to go away, it's an act of kind of domination and control, then there's no arguing with the line of thinking of the thing. Okay? The argument has to be an intolerance to the very relational strategy that's being activated, that's being enacted. Okay? So there doesn't have to be don't get caught up in the conversation and the argumentation with the line of thinking. Because the whole thing isn't about the line of thinking. It's about the manipulation and to get you to question yourself. So this is really key. This is the one piece that I want to offer. And this can be, this isn't something that we learn overnight. But I really want to empower people that this is your right, this is your entitlement, and we can have a lot of conditioning, and we do, around, it being negative to be assertive, or just, these negative stories that we have about having healthy boundaries, and that people that are like this are very, very good at saying just the thing that's going to get through your bubble and get to your sensitive point where you question yourself, right? So we have to strengthen our ability to understand this dynamic. It doesn't mean that all people that do this are bad. We all might do it to some extent or another ourselves, subtly or grossly at times. So again, this isn't to demonize people that do this, but it's to empower being on the other side of it, and that we are entitled to being respected in this basic way, and to learn how to recognize when a manipulation strategy is being played, and just stop the game. It's basically like stop the game. It's like a whistle blown, foul. Like we have to stop the game and reassess and call out what just happened and stop the conversation. Basically, the conversation then becomes about this. About, if I'm going to continue a relationship with you, this is not okay with me. Okay? You're requiring the person to own and take responsibility for whatever it is that's going on for them. That you're not okay with dishonesty. You're not okay with, saying one thing and then doing another. Or, whatever the thing is. Like we have to stand up for ourselves and for the value for truth and honesty and facing reality together in relationships. we're not perfect, like that's okay. But the energy of lie and deception and this especially more brutal forms of psychological abuse cannot be tolerated, okay? Or they're not okay. It's not okay. And the more empowered we become, the more we become fiercely aligned with the truth that it's not okay. That we deserve, basic respect, and that people don't have to agree or like it, or we can get into difficult negotiations, okay? But that's different than strategies and tactics that are designed to come over into your space and attack and question and try to discredit you and your truth. This is about stopping those and stopping participation. That's the power that you have. So we don't have power to stop the person and get them to see, and then we're coming on their side, and you're just doing this because of this. No. This is about just stopping the participation in the dynamic, and then that person has a choice. That person has to choose. Do I want to, if there's a strong line here, a clear thing, and every time I try to do this, I get this boundary and this message and this no. And then I don't get to connect with this person that I'm trying to connect with. It gives that person a choice to either rise up and take responsibility and basically align with a different form of communication, or to go away, right? That's the thing. So that is the power we have in relationships, is to stop participating in abusive, unhealthy dynamics. When we stop participating, the only choice that the other person has is, if you look at it this way, like vibrationally, right? The person's trying to relate to you here, but you're not gonna go down to their level and do that. You're gonna stay up here, and you're gonna require them, if they want to maintain a relationship with you and get the benefit of your energy and your love and your connection, your attention, you have set the bar up here, so that all they can do is then have the choice to rise up, to connect with you, or to leave. And that's what we have to be willing to do. So I hope this is helpful. Again, this is a topic that, is really profound, and to break it down, we could go into lots more detail here, but I've hoped to have given you something that's relatable and concrete, and that can serve you in your own journey with this, and feel more empowered around having these difficult conversations and learning the language. That's the thing, is like learning the language of what and how to do this, and what can be said in those moments is really critical. Because we're not conditioned, we haven't been taught this way of operating. So it's really like learning a new language. Okay, so I wish you well, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.